Without warning, the tall man spun around, his cloak falling behind him, a flash of steel flying from his hand. Quick as a young lion, the hunter sprang aside as the knife hissed over his head to strike, vibrating into a tree. In one fluid motion the hunter leapt to his feet, drawing the steel knife from the wood with one hand and his flint knife from its sheath with the other, and charged, giving a battle cry that sounded like a wild creature of the forest. The tall man calmly took a step forward to meet the attack, and then the hunter was upon him. Aiming a ripping stab at the taller man's throat, without a wasted motion the tall man stepped aside and parried the hunter's arm. As their arms struck, the hunter felt hard ringmail beneath the tall man's sleeve. A slash with a dagger would do nothing against the tall man's limbs or body. The hunter drew back, switching both his knives to reverse grip, points down, and waited, arms outstretched like a mantis. He would use the knives as hooks to trap the tall man's arms and open the body to attack. Such a grip lessened the hunter's reach, but doubled the power behind a stab, power he would need to penetrate his opponent's hidden armor. The tall man drew a dagger with his right hand and aimed a low, lunging thrust at the hunter's abdomen. As the hunter moved to parry this attack, the tall man thrust a second blade, concealed in his left hand, at the hunter's face. The hunter tried to trap the man's arms with his own blades, but the older man evaded him like smoke. The tall man renewed his attack, alternating between slashing and thrusting with his two blades. At longer ranges, the older man's experience and greater reach gave him the advantage. In close, the hunter's young reflexes and strong limbs gave him the edge. They clashed once more, and the hunter's flint knife snapped in two, the thin, sharp stone too brittle to take the impact of a fight. The hunter dropped the broken blade just as the tall man lunged in. The hunter parried the thrusting arm, caught his opponent's right hand and twisted it outwards, locking the wrist. He stepped back to pull the tall man off balance and keep away from the man's other blade, while bringing the edge of his own dagger against the sleeve covering the tall man's pulse, ready to cut the wrist. Instead of resisting the lock, the tall man stepped in and threw a left thrust over the top of the locked arms. The hunter swept the thrust aside and circled his arm around his opponent's, pinning the tall man's arm. The hunter brought his dagger to the crook of the tall man's right elbow, locking his right arm securely. Now the tall man's longer reach and forward grip became a detriment, as the blade was pinned too far from the hunter's back to reach him. The hunter was about to order the tall man to yield, when he felt 3 light taps on the lower part of his spine. The hunter looked over his shoulder and found that the tall man had reversed his grip on his dagger and freed it to work. The hunter smiled and released the older man. The man took a step back, sheathed his dagger, and bowed.